Hello everyone, I'm back. I hope everything is good for you. I didn't plan to do this video today. Actually, I wanted to do a craft video, art and craft collage. I wanted to do that, but I couldn't because at my son's place today, I'm not at home, so I don't have all my supplies to do my craft. I planned a long time ago to watch Get Back, you know, the documentary about the Beatles. I planned to watch it at my son's place, and I needed time because it's a long documentary. There are 3 episodes, and the total lasts almost 8 hours. So I needed to be here, not just for a dinner, but really to stay. So as I'm at his home right now to babysit his pets, he has 2 cats and a dog, and I have my cat also. So I have 3 cats and a dog right now. I'm taking care of them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to watch this documentary because it's the right time to do so. My son has Disney Plus, I don't, and that's why I could only watch it at my son's place. I was very down these last days because of all the events, you know, the war in Ukraine, all that really made me so sad, and that's why it was difficult for me to do a video, because I don't want to take my phone and film myself being sad. And I was wondering how I would be able to do a video by being so sad and so scared and overwhelmed by what is happening. In the middle of that, I must do my extension of stay again. So it's crazy because 2 years ago it was the pandemic and I was doing my extension of stay, which was a lot. And now it's the war in Ukraine, and I must do my extension of stay again. And all that is really very stressful for everybody, not only for me. And also we have the elections in France. So I'm not in France, I'm in the US, but I'm still voting. So of course I must be aware of what is happening. And that is also very stressful because, well, the conditions are not the best to do an election right now. I'm really scared about what is going to happen next. Anyway, I'm not here to speak about politics. All that to tell you that I was not very joyful to do a video. I thought, okay, I'm going to watch the Beatles. It's going to change my spirit, my mood. I was right. I was stunned by what I was watching. I didn't expect that at all. I didn't know at all what I was going to watch. I thought it was a documentary about the Beatles. I didn't know that it was basically I'm going to explain to you what it is. They have been filmed during rehearsals and recordings of an album named Let It Be. And it happened just before they broke up, and they planned also to do a show. Obviously they seemed to want to do a show somewhere, but they didn't know yet where, because they didn't have made a concert during a very long time. I don't know if you remember, but the Beatles, they toured at the beginning of their career, and then they stopped because the audience was not listening to them. People were screaming. It seems that they didn't like so much touring, especially I think George Harrison and Ringo Starr. They didn't like so much to tour, so they didn't tour much, but they planned to do a concert or a show during the shooting of this documentary. They didn't know yet where, how, in front of whom, in which country. It's a whole discussion. And basically we are arriving there in the middle of their rehearsals and their recordings and their creation, because they are creating songs in front of us, which is absolutely incredible to watch. That's all what I love. That was filmed in 1969, and they broke up, I think, in 19 70. They were recording this album, basically. They were doing this album on this documentary, but they wanted the album to be live. They are all playing at the same time, as if they were live in a concert. So it means no overdub, no editing. They wanted the thing to be just as they played, which makes the thing even more difficult, but also much better. I like that. So it was very difficult, very stressful. They had to create songs. They didn't have enough songs, obviously, at the beginning. That's, I think, what was creating some tension in there during their rehearsal. I'm sorry, I have a sore throat. I didn't know that until I started talking. It's because I never talk when I'm alone, except to the cats and pets and dog. So suddenly talking a lot, I'm not used to it anymore. By the way, my hair is still wet, so sorry. Right now I'm good. In maybe half an hour I will be with hair like that. First, I'm going to tell you my own experience, history with the Beatles. I knew the Beatles when I was a very small child. I was really small, not in age of buying records. I was a very small child, and my stepfather, who is a little younger than my mother, was listening to the Beatles at home. By the way, I stole his records. You must not say it. I cannot show them to you what I have because it's in my home and I'm not at home. But anyway, I have a few vinyl records by the Beatles. And I basically knew all the songs because my stepfather was listening to that all the time. And also we could hear them on the radio. We could hear them everywhere. We almost didn't need to have records by the Beatles. So we knew the Beatles because we could hear them everywhere in France when I was a child. So I was very aware of what the Beatles were doing, who they were. I knew all of them. And later, when I was more a teenager, I still loved the Beatles, of course. I was very into John Lennon because I was the kind of girl loving everything which is a little on the edge, a little rebellious, a little different, a little peace and love. So I had a thing. When I say I had a thing, I loved especially John Lennon's music. And I also loved a lot George Harrison's music, not him, his music. So, of course, when John Lennon was killed, so that was later, I was older, I was very shocked, really, as everyone, I think. And when George Harrison died, so that was more recent, I perfectly remember when it happened because I was just that day starting an art and craft show. And I was settling, and they were distributing a newspaper at the place where we were exhibiting. And on the cover of the newspaper, it was George Harrison died. And I was very upset that day. I couldn't focus on what I was doing just because George Harrison died. I really loved them, and I was very sad for both of them. But I also loved a lot Paul McCartney. I have Band on the Run by the Wings. I was aware about what Paul McCartney was doing. I also have a vinyl record by Ringo Starr. What album it is? There is the word rose in the title. If I was at home, I would show you my album. Anyway, I was aware about everything they were doing, but I was more a John Lennon fan and a little more also George Harrison fan. I liked about George Harrison his peace and love, hippie style, like a dreamer, and I liked also a lot John Lennon's because it was more my style. But, after watching this documentary, that is really strange, I still love all of them. That didn't change. but I think that the one that I prefer now, after watching the documentary, it's actually Paul McCartney. A few years ago, before I moved to the US, so maybe in 2003 or something like that, I watched a documentary about Paul McCartney. I tried to find this documentary online, I couldn't find it. It was about him. More recently, he was composing kind of classical music for I don't remember if it was for a concert or for a film or for a documentary. I don't remember, but I remember that I watched this documentary at least twice, and I even recorded it on my tape recorder. We had big tapes then. I was very impressed. He was explaining how he was recording and how his way of composing was different from when he was in the Beatles or even when he was working for himself. And we could see him in studio and composing and arranging and recording. And I thought, wow, this guy is we knew he was good. We knew that. Who doesn't like the Beatles? I don't know, but we know that they are talented, that they were talented. But suddenly I realized at what point Paul McCartney was talented. And then in 2003 or something like that, already changed a little my opinion about Paul McCartney. I started thinking that maybe he was the one who was the most talented of the four. Now, by watching this documentary, I think so. Not that the other ones are not talented, they are all very talented. John Lennon, no question asked, he's very talented. George Harrison is very talented. Ringo Starr, by his own way, is very talented too. He's perfect for the Beatles, Ringo Starr. He's not the best drummer of the world, but imagine a drummer like Keith Moon on the Beatles. That would be too much because already Paul McCartney, John Lennon are really the strong ones of the Beatles, and George Harrison, he's bringing his own thing to the Beatles. But if we had on the top of that a drummer who takes all the space, it would be too much. So I really think that Ringo Starr was exactly what they needed. He's just the right drummer for the Beatles, and he's so kind, he's so nice. Yeah, very nice. All that to say that after watching this documentary, really I'm more than impressed by Paul McCartney. A lot. Suddenly I realized what a genius he is, and I'm glad that he's still alive. That's incredible. Someone who knows at that point exactly what he wants. He goes for it. In spite of all what happened, he continues. And still now, he continues. So I took some notes. I cannot tell you everything which happened. I'm not going to tell you everything. Then it's going to be spoiled for you. You really must watch it. But I'm going to give you my feeling, my impressions about it. So first they went to rehearse in a studio named the Twickenham Rehearsal Studio, and it's a very big, huge space, and there is kind of an echo in it. On Twitter, some people were commenting that they couldn't understand what they were saying, the Beatles. They seemed to say that it was because of their accent from Liverpool, the north of England. So they have an accent, that's right. But I don't think that the problem was the accent, because I understand them, and I'm not British, I'm not English, so I don't think that their accent is so complicated to understand. I understand them, but I think that it's because the sound is a little echoey in the studio, and sometimes they all speak at the same time, so sometimes we don't manage to hear what they are saying. That's why they put some subtitles in English to let us understand what they are saying, because it's not easy to hear. Because when they go back to the Apple Studio, we hear them better. The sound is not the same. So I really think it's a problem of sound. So know that you will have sometimes to read some subtitles. The first thing that I'm going to say, and it's like the elephant in the room, you know, something that we cannot ignore. First thing which came to my mind was what Yoko Ono is doing there. Not only there in the studio, but there, like stuck to John Lennon, beside him, almost on his knees, you know, almost playing on his instrument. At a point, John Lennon is playing and she's kissing him and he has to sing, so he has to almost push her away, you know, to be able to sing. He doesn't push her, but that is the most ridiculous thing that I have ever seen. This is ridiculous. What she was doing there all the time, and not only in the studio in general, but where they were recording, where they were playing, just there. Every time I think I see an image, I say, oh, this time she's not there. No, she's there. She's cornered there, or she's sitting just in front of John Lennon, or just beside him, just like that, you know. And sometimes she's reading, sometimes she's drawing something, sometimes she's, I don't know, looking at a magazine. And my first thought was, she has so much nothing to do that it's the only thing that she can think of, going there. You know, creation and recording in the studio, it's a very creative process, and they have to focus, and they cannot be distracted by wives, children, dogs. I am saying that with my ex-husband, we were going to the studio with my dog, who actually was distracting Duran, because my dog was always running away from our studio, and he was running to Duran, who was recording at Davout in Paris. It's a studio, a very famous studio. And every time I had to go and grab my dog, who was hidden in the drums, Duran's drums. They loved him. They were feeding him with French fries, and it was making him sick. And I told them, stop, he's going to continue coming if you give him to eat. But anyway, this is the kind of job you have to be focused on what you are doing, and you cannot be distracted. A wife who is there and who has nothing to do there. I'm going to tell you a little story which happened to me that I understood only now thanks to this documentary. But now that I watched this documentary and that I know what was going on, suddenly I understand better what happened to me, which is absolutely incredible, because I have nothing to do with the Beatles, but it's a very similar story. I'm going to tell you. We always thought that Yoko Ono was going there because she wanted to be beside John Lennon all the time, and people assumed that it was probably very annoying for him. Maybe, but it's not exactly that. Actually, he was the one who wanted her to be there all the time. I've read online some articles where she was saying that sometimes he even wanted to go to the bathroom with her, or she had to follow him to the bathroom because he wanted her to be beside him all the time. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, it's completely sick. There is a problem there. That's not normal. Anyway, that's why, obviously, she was there all the time, because he wanted her to be there all the time. I thought, why? And then I remembered that happened to me. My ex-husband, I'm going to call him my ex, at a point, he was working with a guy named Peter, who had one record or two which worked really well in France. It was kind of a hit. And Sony was producing and distributing the record and was paying for everything. My ex-husband and Peter, they knew each other very young, as the Beatles when they were maybe 13, 14. My ex-husband was a little older than Peter, but they met when Peter was maybe 13 and my ex-husband was maybe 15, and they played together. So, of course, when Peter tried to reach the labels and the records company, he wanted to play with my ex. They were like brothers almost, like cousins. They got along really well until money was involved, until Sonny was in the middle, because Peter starting having the big head, Unfortunately, he couldn't do everything. He really needed my ex to, especially for the arrangements, the programming, all that. My ex is, I don't know now, but then was more gifted about that than Peter. Peter was very good to compose, but my ex composed too. But for everything, which was about programming and arranging, my ex was better than Peter. So he needed my ex. And they played together during maybe 2 years, 3 years, maybe, I don't remember exactly. But then at a point, there were some troubles. They didn't get along anymore. There were money problems. Peter, who didn't want to credit my ex for what he did and all that, and they broke up. The band, it was a band, they broke up. There was my ex and there was another guy, I don't remember what he was. Was he the drummer or the bass player? I don't remember. And a girl who was actually Peter's girlfriend. Peter broke up with the girlfriend and the guy broke up between them, and it was a mess. I didn't like much Peter. He was very unpleasant with me. He was very happy to find me when he needed to celebrate his record release. Then he was very happy that I did it at my home and organized everything. But when he was not needing me, he was really very unpleasant and really horrible. But I didn't mind that my ex was working with him as long as he was not annoying me, which unfortunately was the case all the time. So it was not going well. And at a point they broke up, but not because of me. They had their own problem. And they broke up. And then during, I think, maybe 1 year or two, they didn't speak. They didn't talk to each other. And then Sony Music contacted my ex because Peter couldn't do it without him. And Sony really wanted my ex to come back. So I said, okay. My ex asked me what I was thinking. I said, we needed money. Sony was paying rather well. And it was planned that they would go to... Yes, my ex was supposed also to go to Prince studio in Minneapolis. Finally, it was just Peter, so already the problems started again, Everything promised was not so promised anymore. It was a mess. They continued working together, but it was not going well again. And it had nothing to do with me because I was not in the middle anymore. I didn't want to hear about it. I was completely in another world, let's say. And one day they had to rehearse together for, I don't remember what, maybe a new album, or I don't remember what it was, or maybe a show, I don't remember. They had to rehearse, and the rehearsal was in a place which was very close to our home, and my ex wanted me to go to the rehearsal, and I didn't understand why he was asking me that, because I was never going anymore when Peter was involved. But he really wanted me to be there. I don't know why. I didn't know why until now. I only understood now. I thought he wanted me to hold his hand. I don't know. I told him it's going to be a problem. You know, Peter, he doesn't like me. He's going to be very upset that I'm there. And my ex said, I don't care. I'm asking you to come. It's not up to him. I'm the one who asking you to come. Okay? So I was kind of flattered, but I knew that it was going to be a problem. But okay, I said, okay, if he wants me to come, I go. It was planned that I would stay only 2 hours or something like that, because then I had to pick up my son somewhere. Yes, then I had to pick up my son somewhere, my younger son. I went, and worst, it happened that my sister-in-law was around that day, and she wanted to come too. And my sister-in-law, my ex-sister-in-law, is not the kind of woman who is very discreet. She's kind of very noisy and not very discreet. So I thought, oh wow, I'm coming and she's coming. That is going to be too much. But my ex-husband said, yes, come. You come. So I was like, what is going on? Why he wants us to come? So we arrived there. We helped him to carry his stuff, his gears and all that. And we were sitting on the couch like that. And Peter was around, started looking at us. And he said, no, you are not going to stay. We have to work and you have to go. I looked at my ex-husband, and my ex-husband was saying nothing. You know, if I was saying, oh, okay, I go away, it means that I'm obeying. Not my style at all. I'm not the kind to obey that guy. But if I was saying, no, I will stay, it could create a problem between my ex and Peter. So I said the only thing that I could say, it was, Igor asked me to come. If he wants me to leave, he must tell me leave and I will leave. So my ex had to decide. I think it's not useful to say that my sister-in-law was very upset and she said, no, I'm staying. And I told her, no, if Igor tells us to go, we have to go. So Peter and Igor, my ex, went to talk in another room. They were a little screaming. And my ex came back and said, okay, you have to leave. And at a point, Peter said, I'm sorry, but I cannot create in front of people like that. I'm very self-conscious and I cannot do that. I understood that. If he had told me that from the very beginning, saying, I don't mind you to stay, but I'm unable to work if you are there because I'm self-conscious and I don't feel comfortable creating in front of people who are not involved in the work, I could have understood that. That seemed logical to me. But I said, okay, Igor told me to go, I go. My sister-in-law, my ex-sister-in-law, was mad. She was very upset. When we left, she told me, it's incredible. How do you accept to be treated that way? It's so humiliating. Yes, it was a little humiliating, but my ex wanted me to go. I went. Peter wanted me to leave. My ex said, you have to leave. I left. When he came back home, my ex, I told him, what was that? Why did you ask me to go? You knew that it was going to be a problem. It was just for the pleasure to tell me to leave. That is not really nice, you know. He said, anyway, it's over. What over? They broke up. They broke up. It was over. He didn't want to work with Peter anymore. And after that, Peter's career went down. So I thought, is it because Peter asked me to leave? No. We had problems. And I always wondered why my ex asked me to go, knowing that it would be a problem. By watching this documentary, I suddenly understood. Because it's exactly the same story there. I mean, Peter and my ex have nothing to do with the Beatles. But I mean, psychologically, it's the same situation. John Lennon, it's not that he wants his wife to be around all the time because he's so in love that he cannot live 1 hour without her. No, I can't believe that. He wanted her to be there all the time, just there, on his knees. You know why John Lennon was doing that, I'm sure. Because he wanted Paul McCartney to be very upset, so they would have an argument, and then it would give to John Lennon a good reason to leave the band, saying, you see, it's your fault, you don't accept Yoko. But Paul McCartney, he's smart, he didn't do that. So John Lennon, I think he used his wife to create the breakup, but it didn't work that way because Paul McCartney didn't say a thing. He let Yoko Ono be there. Everybody was annoyed, but Paul McCartney said, well, she's not annoying, she doesn't say much, she's not disturbing us. He said the Beatles broke up because Yoko was sitting on an amp, which is ridiculous, of course. A band cannot break up because a woman is there. Even if it's very annoying, it's a little ridiculous. But I think that my ex used me thinking, because I'm not the kind of woman to shut up, usually. I defend myself very strongly. So he thought that Peter was going to ask me to leave and that I would do a scandal. But it's not what happened. I let my ex decide what I was supposed to do. And then my ex had to break up with the band by himself. I didn't create the breakup because he could have said, oh, you have not been respectful with my wife, so I break up with the band. Well, maybe he said that. I don't know what he said exactly, but anyway, it's not my fault. He didn't break up because of me. He wanted to create the situation where there would be a scandal and that I would be angry and that I would say, that's enough, you must not work with Peter anymore. But I didn't do that because I knew that it would be against me in the end. I could not decide for him. He had to decide by himself, to decide or not to decide. I didn't know that he was going to break up with the band again. I didn't know that. But I think that he wanted to use me. And I think that John Lennon wanted to use Yoko Ono to break up with the band. But as Paul McCartney said nothing and accepted Yoko in the studio, John Lennon had to leave just by himself. And he let a little the story saying Yoko broke the band. By a certain way, yes, she did, but I don't think that she did it purposely or consciously. I think that the fact that she arrived in John Lennon's life when she arrived created the condition, the situation for John Lennon to be strong enough to break up with the band. And somehow he tried to use his wife to break up with the band, but it didn't work exactly that way. And anyway, he broke up with the band. And actually, Paul McCartney had the same reaction as I had. I said nothing, he said nothing. That's why suddenly I understand much better Paul McCartney by watching this documentary. I understand him because I understand his position. I was not in the band with my ex. I mean, I was not a part of the band. But I had to take a decision where I wouldn't be the one who provokes the breakup. And I think that Paul McCartney didn't want to be the one who provoked the breakup. So it's incredible that I needed to watch this documentary to understand that my ex used me by hoping that I would create a situation where there was no other solution than breaking with the band. But I didn't do that. I'm glad that I didn't, because I didn't decide. My ex did the job by himself, and he decided by himself to break up with the band, and John Lennon decided by himself to break up with the band. He couldn't say, Yoko Ono decided for me. No, he decided by himself. Actually, it's very sad to watch that. It's very sad, because there is a little problem with George Harrison at a point. We were talking about that by text message with my younger son. My younger son watched the documentary before me, and he told me George Harrison is behaving like a diva. And yes, a little, but I understand George Harrison's point of view. I understand why he was upset at a point. And you know, George Harrison was creating very beautiful songs, and the Beatles should have used more of his songs. He was a good composer too. But even if he was upset, leaving a band just in the middle of a project, that's not very professional. That's what my ex did. Yes, but you know, my ex was not a part of the Beatles. It was not a big deal if he was leaving. It was not a catastrophe. I mean, he was paid to work, yes, but he was not linked to the record company as Peter was. So it was not such a big deal if he was leaving. You don't leave the Beatles in the middle of a project. You are a part of the Beatles. A part of the Beatles, you don't leave. I mean, that's insane to leave the Beatles when we think about it. And really, it makes me sad for Paul McCartney. When I watched that, I felt so bad for Paul McCartney, because we can see that Paul McCartney is trying to keep them together. It's very important for him. He really loves John Lennon as a brother, you know, and he loves the other ones also. We can see that they are like that. And to see them breaking up in front of us like that, we can see that it's deteriorating. We say that it's getting worse and worse and worse. I wanted to say that by watching this documentary also, I was very disappointed in John Lennon. I didn't imagine him like that. I knew that he was funny. He's funny sometimes. He made me laugh, but he's not, how we say that, he's not sincere. We can feel that there is something in his mind. It's not really nice. He's not nice. He's not a nice guy. Sometimes I was watching that and I was thinking, what a jerk, this guy. And I'm sorry to say that. I know that most of the people are crazy about John Lennon. Myself, I loved so much John Lennon, but by watching this documentary, unfortunately, I like him much less. He grew up almost with Paul McCartney and George Harrison. I think Ringo Starr arrived a little later, but they grew up together. They were like that. I understand that musicians at a point need to do their own thing because they become grown-ups. And what was true when they were 15 is maybe not exactly true when they are almost 30. They change, they evolve, and they need to do their stuff, their own stuff. But John Lennon could have said that like that, saying, I'm sorry, I really need to do my thing. Maybe I will do my thing during 2-3 years and then we'll see. Or maybe we can meet sometimes and we do a record, for example, a single, and then we go back to do our own thing. In The Who, for example, John Entwistle did his own records on the side. And also Roger Daltrey, I don't know if he did some records on the side. Keith Moon did one record on the side. I think that they could have found a way of working and make everybody happy. George Harrison really needed to do his thing on the side. I understand that because he was not putting enough material in the Beatles, so it had to go somewhere. He had to prove himself. So I understand better George Harrison than John Lennon. John Lennon, we can see that he's not committed to what he's doing. We can see that he doesn't care. It's very unpleasant to watch, because we see how Paul McCartney is working so hard and trying and trying to keep everyone together. And you have another one there, the one who created the band, who doesn't care. That is really sad. Yoko Ono being there all the time, this is ridiculous. Seriously, sometimes I was like, oh, can't she go home? You know, I'm not against women, but you know, in an article I read that she didn't want to be like any wife who comes and watch her man working and creating while she's waiting in her corner and looking at him. But it's exactly what she was. Linda McCartney was coming sometimes and taking photos because she was a photographer. But she was not there all the time. She had things to do. She had a job. She had a daughter to take care of. Yoko Ono was supposed to be an artist. What was she doing? Wasn't she supposed to work on her art instead? So I understand John Lennon wanted her to be there. She could have said, no, I'm sorry, guy, you are working, it's your job, I have to do mine. Or she could have said, okay, work, and I come at the end of the day to pick you up, for example. I think it's John Lennon's fault and Yoko Ono's fault. Yoko Ono could have said no. At a point, I heard Harry's song. So Harrison was always trying to put a song somewhere in the Beatles album, and he had a lot of difficulties to make the other ones liking his songs, which is a pity because actually he managed to put in the album the song I Me Mine, which is great. It's like a waltz. John Lennon makes a little fun of the song. It's a pity because it's a very good song. I had it in my mind all the time after watching the documentary that I watched 3 times. After watching the documentary the first time, I had that song, Harrison's song, in my mind. Very good song. George Harrison shocked himself with the microphone. It's dangerous to be in that studio. Yes, Paul McCartney sings better than the other ones. Yes, this thought came to my mind. The other ones sing really well. But I think that Paul McCartney sings the best. He's the best. Paul McCartney is the arranger. Yes, because at a point he's very bossy and tells everyone what they have to do. You know, he knows what he wants. And he has the arrangements in his mind. He knows exactly where he wants to go. So especially when it's a song written by him, I understand that he wants the other ones to play as he wants. That is creation. He knows what he wants. And the other ones are like, oh, they play, they don't care, they arrive late, they make fun of someone else, they dance, they are kissing Yoko Ono, they are... And Paul McCartney desperately is trying to work. They have a lot of songs to do. They don't have a lot of time. They have a very short time to do everything. And Paul McCartney is very stressed. He's very anxious. We can see it. So I understand his point of view. Yes, he's bossy, but they didn't have a manager anymore because Epstein died. So the other ones didn't care much, so Paul McCartney had to do the manager somehow. And maybe he didn't like doing that, but he had to because the other ones were like, oh, whatever. No, it's the Beatles. They have to work. I think it's very obvious on the documentary that at the beginning I thought they all had a big head suddenly, pretentious. Actually, not all. John Lennon is big-headed. John Lennon became pretentious. And that is because he had a lot of success and because of Yoko Ono. I think that the combination success, Yoko Ono, Beatles, fame, money, all that made John Lennon... And it's obvious on the documentary. All the time I was thinking he's so pretentious. It makes me sad because I loved so much John Lennon and I'm very sad to see that. I'm not saying he was a jerk all the time. He probably had a lot of qualities. But seriously, I really think that he behaved like a jerk. On this documentary, he plays a game. When there is a problem between Harrison and McCartney, he is playing a very weird game that I didn't like. I didn't like that. He creates more trouble. He's supposed to create a link between the both to make the things better. I'm not sure he does. He creates even more problems, I think. He used Harrison to make McCartney feel guilty. I didn't like that. It's not completely McCartney's fault in this situation. McCartney knew what he wanted. He's maybe a little bossy. Yes, he is. But he had to. George Harrison sometimes is a little in his world, you know. So maybe it was hard to handle for Paul McCartney. And John Lennon in the middle who puts the mess, I didn't like that. That's my own humble opinion. Ringo Starr is really, really cool. Very nice guy. I really like this guy. I was saying that Paul McCartney is the arranger. Paul McCartney can hear the whole song in his head, in his mind, and he's trying to go to it. John Lennon, he seems to not care about the arrangements. And we can see that Paul McCartney alone, everything is carefully thought. John Lennon, it's more simple. It's not so elaborate as Paul McCartney. I wrote, we are attending a conversation without being able to participate. It's exactly that. You are attending this conversation where they have obviously a problem in their band, and you are watching that and you feel so powerless because you can't do anything. This documentary is extraordinary from a musical point of view because you can see them work in front of you, and it's incredible. Quality of the songs is amazing, of course. All the songs are amazing, and it's amazing to watch that. But in the same time, when you can hear what they are saying and they are arguing and there is a problem, and you think, oh, that is so stupid. You want to react. You want to tell them, okay, stop. Now you are going to do that. You are going to do that. You shut up. You go home. You go home. And now you work because you don't have a lot of time. So, and then once it's done, you will discuss other problems. They needed a new manager to put some order in the middle, I think. Yes, also I wrote Paul McCartney, he plays all the time. He's the passionate one. He's the smartest one. Yes, we can see it. Paul McCartney, always on time. Always playing, always creating. When they start talking, he's playing in his corner, inventing something new. We can see that he's passionate about what he's doing. And he's the smartest one. Why? Because he knows the importance of the Beatles. He knows how important is what they are doing. He knows. When they broke up later, he had to sue his bandmates to avoid a guy to take over the rights and everything and the royalties. And he had to do that to save the money for his bandmates, for himself, but for the other ones. And later, the other ones thanked him for what he did. He's the smartest one. He knows what is right and what is wrong. And the other ones, they are... they don't know. So no surprise why Paul McCartney is still talented and still working. He loves his job. He's doing his job. He's creating. He's so talented, so gifted. It's incredible. So I knew that, but I think that I discovered it more by watching this documentary. I wrote John Lennon is sneaky. Yes. I already said it. I don't like the way he's behaving and his attitude, his way of being towards Paul McCartney. They have moments where they joke together and they sing together and they seem to like each other. Actually, Paul McCartney is like that. John Lennon, he probably liked Paul McCartney a lot, but he doesn't behave really well. Seems to be a little paranoid. Some people were saying that he was taking some heroin sometimes. I don't think that he was on heroin while he was working at the studio. I don't think so. But if he was taking some drugs outside of the sessions, it can make people paranoid. So I don't know if if it's the explanation. John Lennon has always been the one who is more political, more angry, more the kind of saying things which you are not supposed to say, you know. Paul McCartney is much more, he's wiser, I would say. He's wiser, he's smarter, he's more smart. We can see the creation of the song Get Back just in front of us. That's amazing. That's amazing. I was in front of the screen. I was thinking, no, I can't believe it. He's creating a song just in front of us, just like that. And he was angry because it was after a little problem with George Harrison, and he was like on his guitar. It was the next day, waiting for John Lennon, and he created a song, a hit, just in front of us. That's amazing. The song was supposed to be political, about anti-nationalism. When you read the lyrics, it's not obvious, but it's interesting because the problem that the country had then, it's still the same problem that we have in France now. So nothing changes. So you will see that at a point, George Harrison leaves the band, just like that. Just like, okay, goodbye, I leave the band. Just, and same thing, I was in front of my screen, I was like, no, I didn't understand correctly what he just said. Yes, I understood correctly. He left the band in the middle of the project, not very professional. As my son said, he was doing his diva. He was playing like a diva. I'm not going to tell you what happens next because I leave you the possibility to discover by yourself. I'm not going to tell you everything. Yes, and then I wrote, Yoko Ono should shut up. Yes, because then they were rehearsing after Harrison left. They were playing. Yoko Ono was screaming in the microphone, and I was like, please shut up. It's very unpleasant to the ears. It's directed by Peter Jackson. The original film, when they filmed it, it was by Michael Lindsay Hogg. There is a musician, a keyboarder, we say that, someone who plays keyboard, Billy Preston, who came and played on the album and also on the concert on the roof. He's great. So it seems that he was famous, and he came there just to say hello, and he stayed and, and recorded with them. That's insane. He was well inspired to go there to say just hello. They all play drums at a point. Actually, they all play all the instruments. So Paul McCartney is on the bass, of course, but also he plays on the guitar, on the keyboard, on the piano, on the drums. He sings. I don't know what he doesn't do. At a point they have a little instrument which is very funny. I don't know how it's called. I let you watch that. Oh yes, I like George Harrison's painted guitar. At the end of the documentary, George Harrison has a guitar which is painted with very bright colors. I love that. So the concert on the roof. Genius idea. Of course, it's a little weird because the people can't really see from where the sound is coming because it's on the roof. But the concept, the idea is genius. It's great. It's a good idea. It's visually exceptional. I'm not going to tell you the whole story about the concert. You have to watch it and to discover it. It's very funny and it's very well filmed and very well shown. It's very well done. The documentary is amazingly done. I watched it 3 times. I don't get bored because I really like watching people work. Whatever it is, in music or in painting, I love that. I know it's not possible because you have to let people have their own peace and space. But I love watching that. It's fascinating. It's amazing that we are able to watch that. It's a part of the musical history. It's very important. To sum up, I would say I recommend this documentary. I discovered how Paul McCartney is talented and is incredible. I discovered that Ringo Starr is a really nice guy. I discovered that George Harrison is as talented as I thought, but he's a little, we call that flaky in Los Angeles. He looks a little flaky. It's exactly that. He could have lived here. In Los Angeles, people are supposed to be flaky. George Harrison should have lived in Los Angeles. I don't know where he lived, but he was made to live here. And Paul McCartney is absolutely not flaky. Paul McCartney, he likes to be structured, he likes to be organized, he likes to know where he's going, he likes to have an aim. He said so at a point. He likes to know where he goes and what is the aim and what is the point. He wants to be productive every day. That is something that I tell myself every morning. You have to achieve something, to do something. When I do nothing, for example on Sundays, when I try to do nothing, I feel bad. I feel guilty. I don't like that. And Paul McCartney is like that. He's the kind of guy who needs to achieve something every day. I understand that because I'm not as talented as he is. I'm not. And I'm not as productive and efficient as he is. But I understand this point of view. I agree with him. And I discovered that John Lennon is as talented as I thought. But he was not a very nice guy, at least at that period. I don't know before, I don't know after, but at that period, he was not very nice, and I'm very disappointed in him. And I'm sorry to say that because I don't like to talk like that about people who are not there anymore. I'm sure that he had many other qualities. George Harrison is the youngest one. That's probably why Paul McCartney was also a little bossy with him, because he's older than George Harrison, so maybe he felt the need to behave like a big brother. I suppose, something like that. I'm very surprised also because now I checked, every time I have a Beatles song in mind that I especially love, I go online and check on Wikipedia who wrote the song. So be careful, because very often it's written John Lennon, Paul McCartney, or Paul McCartney, John Lennon. It doesn't mean that they both wrote the song. Sometimes only one of them wrote the song, but it's credited to their, they had a kind of a company where they are both there, and it's credited to this company. It doesn't mean that they both wrote the song. Most of the time, when I love a song, I go to check, and it's Paul McCartney who wrote the song, not John Lennon. So John Lennon wrote songs that I really love too. I'm not saying that he's not talented. I never said that. He's very talented. But I think that at the end, Paul McCartney was writing more songs than John Lennon. I think that Paul McCartney brought more on the table than John Lennon, because he was working more, because he was more productive, he was more efficient. He was a hard worker, which is not obviously the case of John Lennon. I was very surprised about that. I didn't know that. I was very aware already when I was young what songs were written by George Harrison, because I really liked George Harrison, and I was always curious to know which song is George Harrison's song. I read somewhere that George Martin didn't have a big opinion about George Harrison, and that he regretted later because he recognized that George Harrison was very talented, more than he thought. So we learn a lot of things in this documentary, a lot of things that we didn't know, and I'm very surprised about what I found. And to conclude, I would say, Yoko Ono, go home. Anyway, I'm sorry if I disappointed some of you, if you are a big fan of John Lennon. It doesn't remove everything from John Lennon. John Lennon is still a star in the stars. He wrote wonderful songs like Imagine, or like I'm just a jealous guy. We saw that. We didn't know it was at that point, but No, honestly, Yoko Ono in the middle, that is the most ridiculous thing that I have ever seen. Fortunately for me, I've never been a Yoko Ono. I've never been in the middle of a session, and I never did that. Okay, no, now I'm rambling. I'm going to stop there. I could talk during hours about that. Yoko Ono is ridiculous. Yoko Ono is ridiculous. John Lennon is not nice. Paul McCartney is a genius. Ringo Starr is so nice. And George Harrison is so talented, but a little flaky. Okay, I think you understood my point of view. Okay, now I'm going to go. I have to feed the pets. They are looking at me. I must stop. Okay, I see you very soon in my next one. Maybe it would be some craft, maybe not, I don't know. I hope that the news will be better. Okay, don't forget to subscribe and like and comment, and don't be mad at me. Okay, bye.